All right, Chelsea fans, 3 players Chelsea need to sign this January transfer window. Let's run it. All right, so as we are getting a little bit colder outside with the weather, it is time to think ahead at Chelsea's transfer window. Why else? Because it's an international break and there's nothing else to talk about. So let the wild speculation begin right here. As I mentioned at the top, I think there's 3 positions that Chelsea need to sign. Now, can they? Will they? We'll find out, right? A lot to be determined in the coming months. One thing I think that's probably more important before we even get to the incomings is probably the potential outgoings. I'm really interested to see, with Maresca having a huge squad, not rotating a lot outside of the Conference League. And even then, it's like there's still many players aren't playing a lot. Where do we actually see some of these changes happen? And so that's going to be one big place that I am looking at to see in terms of what type of, are they going to put a bunch of players on loan to kind of kick the decision down the road, or do they just are really decisive and go ahead and sell some players right away in January? That is where I am most interested in seeing from this co-sporting director conglomerate group. And so with that being said, just going to sort by minutes here to see who we've got in all competitions getting minutes and who we are not seeing much of as well. So I think we definitely had some obvious needs. Need a left back. Would love a goalkeeper. January is not the time to do it. Could see you wanting a striker. And then from there, the question is, does Vega play as a defensive mid? Does he play as a left back? Where's his position? Because you could potentially need a defensive mid. And I'd also say you probably need a center back. The way things are going, we're scoring goals, but you never have too many goals, but we're not defending very well. So that's why I definitely left back. I could see center back, even though I love Wes and I love Levi, and goalkeeper, but I don't think you're going to get it. So, hey, go for more goals. That's the way I'm looking at it. In terms of who could leave, though, to create some opportunities to go acquire some players, right? Because I think it's pretty clear that we're going to need to move some people off the book before we add people. I look at the bottom of the minutes played list. Obviously, Ben Chilwell's still here. Played 45 minutes. Seems, even though he was included in the senior squad, you're like, hey, maybe he's got a chance. Obviously, there's not. They're doing him a favor by letting him train with the squad, but 45 minutes in all competitions this season, it's not going to do it. Get him out on loan. See if you can at least get someone to cover the wages and then find a permanent place at the end of the season, because clearly Maresca is not going to bend on him. Chukwuemeka, for the issues he's had, 52 minutes. Again, you just wonder, is this a good fit for the squad anymore? I think Guiu needs to go on loan, right? He's got 125 minutes in all comps. Get him on loan, let him play somewhere, because clearly he's not going to be in the rotation here. You've got Cassidy. Again, you holding on to him for depth, or is Vega good enough? 246 minutes, obviously a lot in the Europa League. I think he's one that you could let go and not really, be too worried about, right? Like, let him go get minutes. I think we have enough depth in midfield, especially with Kieran Dewsbury Hall, who, again, hasn't really featured much, but you've got him. He's a full-blown professional with a lot of minutes from his time at Leicester. You can rely on him, Lavia. You've got Enzo. You've obviously got Caicedo. Again, Vega can play in there. I think there's enough people that can go. But so far, we're only really talking about loans. I mean, maybe you can sell Ben Chilwell if you get a decent offer. They probably think they're going to get a better one in the summer, but the longer he plays, doesn't get there. So now we got to really look and say, okay, are there some potential sales in this squad to raise funds? And I think the first place you have to look are our French center backs in terms of Axel Disasi and Benoit Badiashile. I think you leave Wes. He's playing week in, week out. I love Wes. It's not going as well as it needs to be, but there's a player in there. You got to look at Disasi and Badiashile. 516 minutes from Disasi, and I wonder how many of those are even at center back. Benoit Badiashile's played 488, right? Not a lot of minutes so far for these two, but also, even if they are, you've got Tosin, who has less than both of them, which I find interesting. You've got Levi, and you've got Wes. So I'd say you've got 3 of those center backs for sure in that rotation. I think we've got one too many here with Axel and Benoit. Disasi obviously has joined more recent than Benoit. We really love Benoit, the left-footed center back. Do you think that makes a difference? I think on Disasi's side, you've got a lot more coverage naturally. You could go potentially get another center back, I think, fairly easily. I don't want to overstate that, but there's more right-footed people in the world than left-footed people. I don't know. I don't have a great answer here other than I think they should be circling these 2 names to potentially raise some funds. Disasi's 26, Benoit's 23, so you've got maybe a better upside with Benoit. I think you're just looking at them and trying to maximize funds to go and find a 4th center back. You've got 2 for 1. I mean, do they get crazy and sell 2 and just keep 1? I don't know, but that to me seems the most obvious of players in terms of moving on in January. And I think you could get a fee out of Ligue 1 for either of those players. Other than that, when you look up the list, I mean, obviously Enzo is kind of taking a back seat in this team, and same thing with Nkunku. Those are 2 players that are probably going to, I'm not expecting them to move. And obviously Ben Jacobs just talked about Nkunku, at least in Manchester United. But those are high profile players that Nkunku's got 544 minutes in all comps. Enzo's at 816, which he's in like the top 9, top 10. Nkunku's got to be unhappy with his role in the team. Cole Palmer balling. So tough, a little bit unlucky for him. But even what about an Enzo? We've invested so much money into a player like that. Just to have him sit doesn't really make a lot of sense. So I've listed 1, 2, 3, 4 players. I would say probably 3 players you could look at selling. I don't think you're selling Enzo right now. Then you've got former players that go on loan to, free up some cash flow. That can probably float you in the January window. So with that being said, I know that Tomas Araujo has been quoted by Fabrizio from Benfica, the center back. Like I said, I think, they didn't want to let him go then. Why are they going to let him go in January? But hey, you might as well knock on the door, right? He's young, 22, Portuguese, already has a 711 minutes played, played all 3 matches in the Champions League. Does he really want to leave the Champions League to try to qualify for the Champions League? Money talks. He'll get paid a lot more in the Premier League. Outside of that, for center backs, I mean, you've got Victor Osimhen, who went to Galatasaray. Like, do they try to go back there? Do you need him right now? I mean, that's the big question. But if you can get a proven goal scorer, why wouldn't you do that? Overall, it seems like once you go to Turkey, usually your career starts to slow down. The competition's less. We've heard Jose Mourinho come out in the news and call it a farmers league or something. It was not flattering. That's all I have to say. Another center back is Usman Diomande from Sporting. So we're looking at the Portuguese league for a couple center backs potentially. He's young, 20-year-old Ivory Coast international. Maresca apparently really liked him. So, I mean, that's an option. But other than that, I don't really see too much, at least right now. And these would be big signings. I mean, we're talking at least around probably 50 million for either of those guys easily. And in January, there's always a premium. But there are a few players that Chelsea maybe not be able to sign in January, but could start to have conversations as they are entering the last 6 months of their contract. And you could potentially sign on a free in the summer. And again, if you can get a player interested in joining you for free in the summer, normally that club would rather do a deal, even if it's for 15, 20 million, just kind of like what we did with Jorginho right before he was going to leave on a free, sold to Arsenal, money in the bank. Love that. So you do have Alphonso Davies, left back, younger. So that could be an easy fix. You've also got Kimmich. He's entering the last 6 months of his contract, twilights of his career, but I mean, he could fit that holding mid defensive ball playing role that we want. Something to think about. Leroy Sané, again, I don't know what Bayern are doing, letting all these players run down. He's still in a good spot. It's I don't know. This feels like running back Raheem Sterling. Not really sure, but if we're looking for goals and a change of speed up there, now if you bring him in, I think you're looking at moving one of the attackers out up there. It doesn't make sense. So something to think about in that. Whereas you're like, hey, if you're to bring in Leroy Sané, what makes sense of moving out in our existing group? He's left-footed, so that's direct competition with Noni Madueke. He's still only 28, almost 29. So, it could be seen as high risk, maybe even like what it was with Raheem Sterling. But then you've got Jonathan David. So striker, right? He's only 24. That's an option. We could go back to Canadian. Interesting. If you just think about free, right? Like, hey, fits the budget, open to. Neymar's back on the market, so I can imagine we'll be somehow linked with him, which would be hilarious. And Ferland Mendy at Real Madrid, left back, but he's 29, doesn't really fit that profile. It could be maybe a bridge for a little bit. I don't know, something to think about, but that at least gives you some names, right, of how we can go. I think my biggest disappointment is in the goalkeeping department, obviously as goalkeeper, but it's just not good enough. And Philip Jorgensen, bit of a punt, moved Petrovic out. Like, I didn't see the clear upgrade in that sense. Why not go get a clear number one? But right now you're not. No one's going to let go of a top goalkeeper in the middle of the year. So instead I'm like, all right, well, let's go bolster down the defense right now, because that's clearly the position that we need to rally around, right? I don't know if you have to make it a little bit uncomfortable at center back and put some more pressure under Wes. If Tosin's not going to push him and he seems like his minutes are waning, what do we do there? We need a something to change defensively in that back line. Obviously, Cucurella needs depth. Right now, we're playing Gusto on both sides. Reece James to play both sides. Like Reece James, you got to worry about his fitness. Even Malo Gusto, you have to worry about his fitness a little bit. So how do we not stretch these players so far thin? I need to see these sporting directors be ruthless. Let some people go that don't perfectly fit the project. Continue to go get the people that do. We've got way, way, way too many people on the roster. Make some room in the dressing room, right? Start to hone this group in. Start to be focused and know exactly what you want this team to look like, because we're still half in, half out like we normally are. And it's very attack heavy, which is great because we always have an answer for whatever situation we're in. But defensively, it's not there. So anyways, let me know in the comments, what 3 positions do you think Chelsea need to reinforce this upcoming transfer window? And if you could sign one player overall, who would it be? Make it special. Make it special. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up. Make sure to tune into Thursday's video and pods all week this week. Subscribe. We'll talk to you later.